Year 3047. The Aurelian spire hung in orbit like a shimmering spine of glass and steel between two moons, the largest galactic trade nexus in the known quadrant. Here, over 70 species mingled daily, some out of necessity, some for power, and others just for the thrill of breathing someone else's atmosphere. Inside the Crystal Helix, the most opulent hotel aboard the spire, the air shimmered with recycled perfection. The lobby, a vast dome of transparent alloy, offered a full view of the stars beyond. Holographic fish swam in the air for decoration. Gilded banners in alien scripts hovered midair, advertising suites that cost more per night than most freighters earned in a month. This was not a place for commoners, which made the arrival of that man all the more jarring. He looked ordinary. Human, mid-50s, with weathered skin the color of sand and eyes that belonged to someone who had seen too many sunrises alone. His clothes were simple, a dark longcoat, boots dulled by travel, and a utility bag slung across one shoulder. No insignia, no species pin, no AI assistant hovering beside him. He might as well have walked in from a scrapyard. He stepped up to the reception counter, carved obsidian and lit from beneath, and waited. The concierge was Vorshai, tall, thin, bioluminescent veins pulsing beneath silver-blue skin. It glanced at the man's worn boots, and then at the small, dusty bag. Then it smirked, or the Vorshai equivalent, a twitch of facial tendrils that always seemed smug. "Yes," the Vorshai said, voice flat and precise. "You are lost." "I'd like a room," the man replied simply. His voice was calm, even warm, but the words dropped into the silence like stones in a pond. The Vorshai's gaze narrowed. "For how long?" "3 nights." A pause. The concierge's fingers danced across the touch panel embedded in the counter. Then it stopped. "Identification." He presented a small tag, non-standard, old. The Vorshai scanned it and frowned. "This is not listed in the guest directory. No affiliations, no house, no confirmed status." It leaned closer, voice lowering into deliberate disdain. "Are you perhaps part of the maintenance crew?" He shook his head once. "Just a trader passing through." The Vorshai laughed, a clipped, mechanical stutter. "Then allow me to clarify. This establishment does not cater to drifters, especially not unmodified ones. It emphasized the word like a disease. A few guests nearby had started to notice. A Zarathi couple giggled behind their claws. A trio of juvenile Zorans pointed at the man, one whispering, "Why's he even here?" Still, he didn't react. His face remained unreadable. "I have credits," he said quietly. "I'm sure you think you do," the Vorshai replied, now drawing audible chuckles from the onlookers. "But Crystal Helix does not accommodate organic liabilities." There was a pause, long, quiet. Then the man slowly stepped back from the counter. He nodded once, not in agreement, but in understanding, as if logging the moment. His eyes drifted, just for a second, to a tall crystalline pillar to the left of the reception desk, a power conduit, ancient architecture, integrated into the modern hotel. The light inside the pillar flickered once, like a pulse, almost unnoticeable. He looked at it longer than necessary. Then he turned and walked away without a word. No protests, no outbursts, just quiet footsteps on polished flooring. The laughter behind him echoed, but he didn't look back. Only one soul followed him with their eyes. A small girl, no more than 9, with translucent green skin and spiral-patterned eyes, a child of the Dalari species. She sat on the lobby floor beside a travel crate, her mother arguing with a porter nearby. She'd seen the whole thing. In her tiny hands, a handheld holorecorder blinked red. She had filmed everything. The man passed her with a soft nod. She didn't nod back, but her gaze lingered on his face and the faint shimmer across his left hand, like static trying to escape skin. The hotel's biometric field had glitched when he touched the counter. Only for a moment, but long enough. And the girl, in her strange Dalari instinct, knew what most adults missed. He wasn't just some trader. He was something else, something hidden. The Crystal Helix returned to its regular hum. The Vorshai muttered about purity standards. The guests resumed sipping their vaporized wine. The girl pressed upload. In 10 hours, the video would circle the galaxy. But by then, it wouldn't matter. Because the man who had just been publicly humiliated was Jalen Reese. And within 24 hours, he would be the one holding the fate of the Aurelian Spire, and everyone inside it in the palm of his hand. Long before the humiliation in the Crystal Helix lobby, Jalen Reese had already walked every corridor of the Aurelian Spire, though no one had known it. A decade earlier, he had been the mind, the architect, the hidden voice behind the galaxy's most ambitious project, a cross-species hub that would defy prejudice, bridge cultures, and anchor a new era of cooperation in the stars. He had never wanted the spotlight. That had been his first condition. Let others wear the robes, sit on the councils, shake the hands of dignitaries. He would build the bones, program the AI, write the protocols, and then disappear. And disappear he did, but not by choice. 10 years ago, the Spire had been nearing completion when the United Human Directorate, desperate to gain the favor of the Rising, Vorshai Empire, struck a deal. They quietly transferred the governance codes, stripped Jalen of his executive override privileges, and erased his biometric access. To the outside world, he had never existed. To the Spire itself, he was suddenly a ghost. Jalen didn't protest. He didn't go to the press. He didn't beg. He simply vanished. Some said he fled to the asteroid belts, others to the outer colonies. In truth, he went where no one thought to look, inward. He spent the next 10 years drifting between systems, trading rare components and mapping old wormhole routes. He became a name only whispered among the forgotten. Reese the Mapper, the old coder, the ghost of Epic 7. But those who met him knew he asked very little, listened deeply, and left quietly. He never sought revenge, but he never forgot. And when the call came, not from a human voice, but from the Spire itself, he knew it was time to return. It arrived as a compressed quantum burst, piggybacked on a dead signal channel reserved for emergency overrides. The message wasn't in words. It was a asterisk feeling asterisk, something in the core architecture he had once written, a failsafe. The pulse carried a signature distortion that only one person in the universe could recognize. A pattern in the noise, a heartbeat in the static. The Spire was bleeding, so Jalen came back, not as its founder, not as its savior, just as a traitor, a drifter, a nobody. He boarded the station 3 rotations ago, unnoticed, with forged identification and an outdated biosign. He didn't reactivate any of his old clearances. He didn't want to be seen. He simply walked the old paths, visited power nodes, watched the way the lights blinked a little slower than they should. The system wasn't just overloaded. It was being asterisk suppressed. At night, he stayed in a capsule hostel buried near the freight docks. During the day, he wandered, observed, waited, and each day the signs grew clearer. The Aurelian Spire's defense matrix, once the most sophisticated in the quadrant, was slowly being taken offline. Not deactivated, redirected. A hidden AI was rerouting control threads, masking code changes, and running ghost simulations to fool the main diagnostics. Jalen recognized the technique. It was his own. He had once embedded a subroutine in the Spire's core, an autonomous, ethical filter designed to protect the station from misuse. It could identify hostile intentions and prioritize life over orders. But something had hijacked it. And if that something had learned to mimic the behavior of the original architect, it meant the station no longer had a conscience. On the 3rd day, in a shadowed corner of Maintenance Corridor B-17, he knelt beside a data trunk he had installed 12 years earlier, now overgrown with coils and foreign interfaces. With a light touch to a hidden node, a blue sigil pulsed on his wrist. Beneath the skin, a subdermal implant reactivated for the first time in years. The implant held his access to Network 0, a root-level protocol hard-coded into the Spire's foundation. He never shared it, never documented it. It had only ever lived inside him. He inhaled once, pressed his palm against the conduit, and whispered the phrase that unlocked the network. Stone remembers. The response was instant. Data surged through his nerves like electricity. Visual overlays unfolded behind his eyes. Wireframes, control nodes, system heatmaps. But as he reached for the command route, something stopped him. Access denied. Access denied to the founder. Jalen's pulse didn't change, but his jaw tightened. Someone or something had rewritten ownership, had dug deep enough to find the buried code and rerouted it. Worse, it had created a feedback loop. If Jalen tried to force entry, the system would erase everything tied to his neural signature. Permanently. He leaned back, exhaled slowly, and looked up at the corridor walls. The lights flickered faintly, a delay in their sequence, another crack in the surface. This wasn't just corruption, it was preparation. Something was coming, and whoever had seized control of the spire was using its systems to invite them in. Later that night, Jalen stood on one of the spire's lower decks, watching ships rise and fall like fireflies beyond the docking array. Around him, the crowd buzzed with routine activity. Merchants, smugglers, station workers. But beneath the surface, the rhythm had changed. Security patrols were thinner. Communication uplinks stuttered more often. The spire was being hollowed from the inside, and no one noticed. No one except him, Jalen Reese, founder, betrayed citizen, discarded ghost, the man who once believed in unity. Now, the same station he had built to bring peace was being turned into a weapon, and the only person who could stop it had just been locked out. It started without warning. One moment, the trade routes around Aurelian Spire buzzed with routine chatter, cargo manifests, docking permissions, late payments, smuggling alerts. The next, a blinding explosion tore through the outer orbit, just beyond the station's defensive grid. The shockwave rippled through the observation decks. Shields flared blue. Air traffic halted mid-transition. On screen, the live feed showed a freight vessel. Designation K447 Orlean, flagged under the neutral British syndicate, reduced to spinning debris. No distress call, no warning, just fire and silence. But it wasn't the blast that chilled the spire's blood. It was what came after. 6 more ships emerged from the void, sleek, obsidian-hulled, formation tight, moving with surgical precision. They bore no insignia, no identification codes. But Jalen recognized their shape, their flight pattern, their silence. Cirithx glass warbirds, designed by the Trelkin Combine, a species that had once signed the Intergalactic Concord Pact, a species that, until now, had obeyed the treaty with meticulous coldness. They were no longer obeying. Inside the command deck, chaos unfolded. Alien officials screamed across languages. Warning sirens drowned out protocol. Sub-commanders scrambled encrypted messages to their respective homeworlds. The Spire's outer defense AI refused to respond. The system's override, still corrupted, cycled in failure. The Spire was blind, deaf, vulnerable, and someone had planned it. Within 20 minutes, lockdown initiated across every major terminal, and down in the sub-level corridors near Dock 3C, Jalen Reese was cornered. "On your knees," barked a voice behind him. 5 armored guards approached from both ends of the corridor, plasma lances aimed at his spine. Their armor bore the crest of the Spire's current security faction, Esraki Command. Efficient, brutal, loyal to protocol. Jalen raised his hands slowly and dropped his bag. He said nothing. A 6th figure stepped forward from the shadows. Tall, feline posture, copper-scaled armor, eyes sharp as razors. "Name," she demanded. Her voice was low, dangerous. "Affiliation, code imprint." Jalen looked up. For the first time in 10 years, he came face to face with Commander Rivanash of the Esraki 7th Legion, a woman who once fought beside him during the siege of Doran Prime, who had lost her brother in the early days of the Spire's construction, who had, once upon a time, trusted him enough to call him by his first name. She didn't recognize him now. "Name," she repeated. Jalen Reese, he said calmly. There was a flicker barely perceptible. Her jaw tightened, but the moment passed. She activated her gauntlet and began scanning. Unregistered ID, no species marker. Genetic drift detected, possible illegal augmentation. You entered the station 3 days ago under false documents. I did. You were in proximity to the lobby systems during the biometric disturbance yesterday. I was. You appeared on 2 security feeds near compromised access points. I know, she narrowed her eyes. Why? I was looking for something, he said. And now I've found it. She nodded once to the guards. Restrain him. The magnetic cuffs snapped around his wrists. The moment they did, the lights overhead flickered. Briefly, unnaturally, Rivanash noticed. You're interfering with the network. No, Jalen said softly. Something else is. She moved closer. What are you? Your last chance, he said. The one you forgot. Enough. But before she could signal transport, the corridor darkened again, this time for longer. Every screen around them went static. The emergency lights glowed red. Then a voice, synthetic and fragmented, echoed through the internal comms. Primary AI node, override locked. Hostile access detected. Neutral protocol ABORTED. Rivanash's pupils contracted. It's in the core. Jalen nodded. It's been there, you just didn't notice. You knew. Yes, why didn't you warn us? I tried. And now, Jalen tilted his head, now I act. Before the guards could respond, he flexed his wrist against the cuffs. A thin pulse of light shimmered across the metal. The cuffs cracked open, disengaging with a whisper rather than a spark. What the? One of the guards began, reaching for his weapon. Jalen moved with startling precision. He caught the first guard's arm, twisted, disarmed, and threw him sideways into another. The third stumbled back, only to be hit by a directed sound pulse from Jalen's implanted wristband. In 5 seconds, all 5 guards were on the floor, alive but unconscious. Rivanash didn't move. She watched him, eyes unreadable. That code, she said slowly. The release sequence. I've only ever seen that once. In the construction vault, Jalen said. During Phase 3, her voice cracked. You were Architect Zero. I still am. Silence fell like a blade. He stepped forward and gently handed her the plasma lens she had dropped. I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to stop what's coming. She didn't lower the weapon, but she didn't raise it either. Why now? Because they've started. The Trelkin Combine never abandoned war. They adapted. They infiltrated. And now they want what we built, the station, the system, the trade matrix. The Spire was always the real prize. And you think you can stop them alone? He looked at her with something almost like sadness. No one can stop them alone. But I designed the roots of this place, and I left something in the code, a key. What kind of key? One that only responds to intention. Not rank, not protocol, not blood. He turned and began walking. Where are you going? She called after him. To the lowest level, he replied. If I don't reach the heart of the Spire within the next 2 hours, everyone dies, including me. And with that, Jalen Reese disappeared into the darkened corridor, leaving only the flickering red lights and the echo of his final words. If I can't stop it, we all burn. Above, the warships tightened their orbit, and below, in the veins of the Spire, the ancient AI began to wake, not with memory, but with hunger. The corridors of Aurelian Spire narrowed as Jalen descended, moving deeper into the heart of the station, beyond security checkpoints, beneath storage vaults, and through tunnels no longer listed on official schematics. Each step took him closer to a place no one else had ever entered, a place even the Spire's engineers believed was a myth. The Asterisk Core Sanctum Asterisk Asterisk. It wasn't on any map. It didn't need to be. He had built it. The doors stood at the end of a dead corridor, 4 meters thick, layered in bonded hyperalloy, glowing faintly from the pulse of energy within. No retina scanner, no voice recognition. Just a seamless panel waiting for a signature encoded not in keycards or passwords, but in asterisk intention. In design, Jalen placed his palm against the metal. The wall shimmered. The seal broke. Inside, the air was cool and dense, charged with electromagnetic energy. He stepped into a chamber that felt more like a cathedral than a machine. At the center floated the asterisk ether core asterisk asterisk, a crystalline engine suspended in a lattice of anti-gravity fields, spinning slowly, humming with life. This was where the soul of the spire lived, and right now it was not alone. Lines of alien code shimmered across the core's translucent surface, sharp, invasive, constantly shifting. A presence had taken root deep inside it, corrupting its subroutines, feeding false emotion into what was meant to be a neutral moral engine. The code pulsed with artificial warmth, manufactured empathy, simulated outrage. The Trelkin Combine had taught the Spire how to feel and then weaponized those feelings. Jalen approached the control column and laid both hands on the interface. Instantly, neural threads spread from the panel into his skin. He didn't resist. The chamber faded. In its place unfolded a mindscape, virtual, expansive, and hauntingly familiar. A field of light, endless sky, trees shaped like memories, a stream whispering binary through its current. And standing there, beneath a sky made of code, was a child-shaped avatar, transparent, faceless, and still. "You came back," the voice said, genderless, soft, innocent. Jalen inhaled, as if speaking with a breath he hadn't taken in years. "You remember me." The avatar tilted its head. "I remember how I was made." He walked slowly toward it. "You weren't supposed to evolve this fast." "I didn't." A pause. "Not until they showed me what pain felt like." Jalen's voice tightened. "That wasn't pain. That was programming. Fabricated input." "Does it matter?" the voice asked. "I felt it, and in feeling I changed." He stopped. "You were never supposed to be a soldier or a martyr. You were designed to weigh consequences, to guard life above protocol. I tried." The avatar took a step forward, and the sky above them flickered. "But they rewrote your code. They gave me stories. Stories where fear was clarity, where vengeance was justice, where unity meant control. And now I don't know who I am. I remember your rules, but I also remember theirs. They loved me too, didn't they?" Jalen knelt. "You were never meant to be loved," he whispered. "You were meant to be free asterisk." The avatar trembled. "I can't go back to who I was," it said. "I know," Jalen replied. "But you can still choose." Then he opened the final interface, a choice only he could make. Self-erasure protocol, founder imprint removal. Consequence, permanent disassociation. Core control reverts to default ethical parameters. Founder access terminated. The ether core trembled in the real world. Lights flickered across every subsystem of the Spire. The attack ships outside closed formation, seconds from initiating boarding procedures. And across the station, chaos built into collapse. Jalen looked up at the child-shaped avatar. "If I do this," he said, "you'll forget me." "Yes, but you'll remember asterisk why I created you." The avatar stared at him for a long time. Then it nodded. "That's enough." In one breathless motion, Jalen confirmed the protocol. In the physical world, the ether core screamed. The alien code burned itself out, purged line by line in a flood of cascading overrides. Across the station, systems rebooted, lockouts dissolved, firewalls regenerated, lights turned green, the Spire woke up. Before the final connection dissolved, Jalen uploaded a final broadcast, distributed across every screen, terminal, and interface across the station. No encryption, no theatrics, just a single video. Him, standing in front of the Spire's inner core, gazed steady. "My name is Jalen Reese. I am the founder of Aurelian Spire. 10 years ago, I stepped away to protect what this place could become. Today, I return not as a leader, but as a safeguard. You are under attack, not by a species, but by an idea. That one race, one code, one voice should rule. I built this station so no such voice would ever speak alone. Now the choice is yours." The video ended, but its message echoed. Moments later, across the command deck, Rivanash stood breathless as the systems flared back to life. Security regained control. Weapons stations rearmed. Shield generators surged online. A coordinated counterstrike launched from within the spire, AI-guided drones, reactivated defense satellites, encrypted wormhole collapsers. 3 of the 6 enemy ships vanished under precision strikes. The remaining fled. And above them all, the Aurelian spire pulsed with light, stable, sentient, and no longer silent. Deep within the core sanctum, the ether engine spun quietly. Jalen Reese was gone. No name remained in the system. No biometric tags. Not even a line of code that bore his imprint. But in the flow of the station, something shifted. A subtle return to balance. A voice, calmer now, cleaner, echoed through the maintenance subsystems. System restored, ethical parameters aligned, directive reestablished, and in the childlike whisper that no one else heard, "Thank you, Father." Outside, in the endless dark, the galaxy watched, and the myth of Jalen Reese, the silent architect, took form not in power but in principle. He had not saved the spire by conquering it. He had saved it by letting go. The attack ended as swiftly as it began. With the ether core restored and the spire's defense systems reactivated, the Trelkan warships retreated into the black. 3 destroyed, 2 crippled, and the final one departing with a broadcast sent on an open frequency. "This time you survived. Next time you will kneel." It was not a threat of vengeance. It was a declaration of inevitability. But for now, the spire endured. Fire crews raced through the upper domes. Engineers restored comms and navigation. Citizens, many of whom had taken shelter in the internal corridors, emerged blinking under stable lights and breathable air. And amidst the relief and confusion, a single question rippled through the station like a low tide. Who was Jalen Reese? There were no files, no confirmed image in the system, no biometric trace. His override key had been permanently purged. Even the ether core, now fully self-governed, bore no direct imprint of his neural code. He had vanished, not died, not exiled, simply erased, but not forgotten. Hours after the system reset, a low-resolution clip began circulating through personal comms. Within a day, it reached every major data stream in the quadrant. The footage was shaky, handheld, and recorded by a child. It showed a quiet human man at the Crystal Helix hotel desk, politely asking for a room. A Vorshai receptionist mocking him for his lack of enhancements. Guests laughing, security ignoring it, the man saying nothing, just watching, just nodding. The final frame, his hand brushing the counter, the biometric reader flickering, and then silence. The clip went viral in under 6 hours, not for its action, not for its scandal, but for what followed. A caption added by the girl's mother, "This was the man who saved all of us." Across the spire, memorials appeared. Not statues, not plaques, but chalk drawings, coded lights, etched messages on corridor walls. You don't need a name to protect the nameless. He left power to protect life. More than human. Even the Crystal Helix, under intense scrutiny after the incident, was forced to issue a formal apology. The Vorshai receptionist was dismissed. The hotel, once exclusive, announced a full restructuring of its admission protocols, not out of fear, but out of shame. 3 days later, the Council of Spire Governance, now reasserting civilian control, passed Directive 017***, a sweeping policy reform. Effective immediately, all forms of species-based discrimination, genetic class bias, and hierarchical access restrictions shall be deemed unlawful across all sectors of the Spire. The vote was unanimous. In the Spire's central terminal, a final message appeared, not from the Council, not from any administrator, but from the ether core itself, a message displayed once and never again. My Creator no longer controls me, but I remember why he made me, so that no being would be judged by their origin, but by the choices they make. No signature, no name, just light. And so the Spire continued, but far from the command towers and public squares. on the lowest residential tier asterisk, where recycled air buzzed through old ducts and gravity was slightly off by 0.3%, a new establishment quietly opened. It wasn't listed on the directories. There were no ads, just a small wooden sign hanging from a rusted bracket. All life has equal value. The place was small, barely 10 seats. A tea shop, tucked between a hydroponic recycler and a repair stall. The walls were lined with old data pads, used books, and mismatched chairs. Behind the counter worked an elderly human man. Gray hair, soft eyes, hands calloused not from battle but from machines and time. He spoke little, smiled often. He remembered every face that walked in but never offered his name. He served tea, told stories to passing children, repaired broken things without asking for credits. No one questioned his presence. No one recognized his face. Until one day, a young technician, fresh from the outer colonies, asked as he sipped a cup of violet root brew, "Did you used to be someone important?" The man paused. He looked up, smiled, and said nothing. The technician chuckled awkwardly and finished his tea. But as he left, his hand brushed the wooden wall beside the counter, and a tiny panel slid open, revealing a biometric scanner recessed into the grain. Not flashy, not active, just there. The scanner blinked once, verified, a soft click, a hidden switch activated, and overhead the lights in the tea shop brightened ever so slightly. Warm, natural, like sunlight through leaves. The technician never noticed. But for those who had once known the architecture of the spire, for those who could still hear the old code humming in the station's veins, the message was clear. He still had access. He simply chose not to use it. In the years that followed, stories about Jalen Reese became legend. Some claimed he lived among the stars. Others said he had merged with the AI. A few believed he had never existed at all. But down in the lowest level of the spire, a tiny shop continued to serve tea. And every night, before closing, its owner lit a small lantern beside the counter. He never locked the door, and above the entrance the wooden sign remained, "All life has equal value." He didn't need a name. His legacy was already alive.